What if I told you that a simple penny from 1969, something you might overlook in a jar or drawer, could actually hold surprising value and a story that most people have never heard? Today, we're uncovering the truth behind the 1969 D. Lincoln penny, a coin that looks ordinary but carries history, mystery, and collector interest that continues to grow. The 1969 D. Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced by the United States Mint. The small D mint mark on the coin tells us it was struck at the Denver Mint. At first glance, it doesn't seem special. It has the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back, just like many other pennies from that era. But as we go deeper, you'll see why collectors still pay close attention to this specific year and mint. To understand this coin, we need to step back into 1969. The United States was going through a time of major change. The country was in the middle of the Vietnam War, and at the same time, it was preparing for one of the greatest achievements in human history, the Apollo 11 moon landing. While these major events were unfolding, millions of pennies were quietly being produced for everyday use. The Lincoln penny itself had already been around for decades. First introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. By 1969, the design had become familiar across the country. The front of the coin shows Lincoln's profile, designed by Victor David Brenner, while the back displays the Lincoln Memorial, a design added in 1959. Now let's talk about what makes the 1969 D penny unique. The coin is made primarily of copper, about 95%, with a small mix of tin and zinc. This gives it that classic reddish-brown color when it's new. Over time, many of these coins turn darker, developing a brown tone due to oxidation. The D mint mark, located just below the date on the front of the coin, is one of the first things collectors look for. This small letter tells you the coin was minted in Denver, which produced hundreds of millions of pennies that year. Because of this high production number, the 1969 D penny is generally not considered rare in circulated condition. However, that's where the story takes an interesting turn. While most 1969 D pennies are common, certain conditions and details can make them far more valuable. For example, coins that have been preserved in near-perfect condition, often called mint state, can be worth significantly more than their face value. Collectors pay close attention to color. A coin that still has its original red shine, known as a red penny, is much more desirable than one that has turned brown. Even small differences in color and surface quality can make a big difference in value. There are also small variations and minor errors that collectors watch for. While the famous 1969 double die error is associated with coins from the Philadelphia Mint and not Denver, it has created a lot of attention around all 1969 pennies. This has led people to take a closer look at their coins, including those with the D mint mark. In some cases, 1969 D pennies with strong strikes, clean surfaces, and minimal wear have sold for impressive prices at auctions. While most examples are worth only a few cents, high-grade coins graded by professional services can sell for hundreds of dollars. In rare cases, exceptional examples have reached even higher values, especially if they are among the finest known. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 1969 D penny? Start by examining the coin carefully. Look at the date and mint mark. Make sure the D is clear and not altered. Check the overall condition of the coin. Are the details sharp? Is Lincoln's hair well defined? Are there any scratches or marks? Next, pay attention to the color. If the coin still has a bright, reddish appearance, it could be more valuable. Also, look for any unusual features, such as doubling in the letters or numbers. Though this is less common for the Denver Mint in this year. One important thing to watch out for is counterfeit or altered coins. Some people try to modify coins to make them appear more valuable, especially by adding or changing mint marks. A genuine 1969 D penny will have a mint mark that matches the style and placement used by the Denver Mint at that time. If you believe you have a high-quality or unusual example, it may be worth having it evaluated by a professional coin grading service. These experts can confirm its authenticity and assign a grade, which can greatly impact its market value. Here's something many people don't realize. Even though the 1969 D penny is common, it plays an important role in the broader story of coin collecting. It reminds collectors that value isn't always about rarity alone. Condition, history, and demand all come together to determine what a coin is truly worth. There are also some fun details about coins from this era. For example, during the 1960s, the United States Mint was working hard to keep up with demand for coins. Coin shortages earlier in the decade led to changes in production and distribution, which influenced how coins were made and circulated. Another interesting fact is how pennies from this time connect people to history. A coin like the 1969 D penny may have passed through thousands of hands over the years. It could have been used in everyday transactions during a time when the world was changing rapidly. Collectors today love the 1969 D penny not because it is the rarest coin, but because it represents a moment in time. It's accessible, which means almost anyone can own one, yet it still offers the excitement of the hunt. Finding a high-grade example in circulation is rare, and that challenge keeps collectors searching. There's also a sense of nostalgia attached to these coins. For many people, pennies like this bring back memories of childhood, of counting change, or of discovering coins in old jars. That emotional connection adds another layer of value that goes beyond money. And here's where the curiosity really builds. Somewhere out there may still be 1969 D pennies sitting unnoticed in collections, drawers, or coin jars. Some of them could be in excellent condition, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. So the next time you come across an old penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the date. Look for that small D mint mark. Examine the color and condition. Because even a common coin like the 1969 D Lincoln penny can surprise you. In the world of coin collecting, knowledge is what turns ordinary objects into hidden treasures. And sometimes, the difference between a 1-cent coin and something far more valuable comes down to a careful eye and a bit of curiosity. And who knows, the next time you check your pocket change, you might just be holding a piece of history that's been waiting decades to be noticed. What if the small, ordinary penny sitting in your pocket right now could quietly be worth far more than 1 cent? Not because it's old, not because it looks different at first glance, but because of tiny details most people never notice. Today, we're uncovering the story of the 1973 D Lincoln penny, a coin that millions have seen, but very few truly understand. The 1973 D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced at the Denver Mint in 1973. At first glance, it looks like any other Lincoln penny you've handled. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. But behind this simple design lies a deeper story, one tied to American history, changing metal compositions, and the hidden world of coin collecting. To understand this coin, we have to go back to the early 1970s. The United States was facing economic pressure, rising inflation, and increasing metal costs. Copper, which had been used in pennies for decades, was becoming more expensive. By 1973, the U.S. Mint was already thinking about alternatives, even experimenting with different materials. This makes coins from this era especially interesting because they represent a transition period in American coinage. The Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark on the front of the coin just below the date, produced over 4 billion pennies in 1973. That's right, billions. So at first, it might sound like there's nothing rare about this coin. But in the world of coin collecting, rarity is not always about how many were made. It's about how many survived in perfect condition and whether any unusual variations or errors slipped through the minting process. The design of the 1973 D Lincoln penny follows the classic look introduced in 1909. On the front, you see Abraham Lincoln facing right, with the words "In God We Trust" above his head, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1973 stamped clearly. The small D mint mark sits just beneath the date, indicating it was struck in Denver. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly in the center, with United States of America across the top and 1 cent at the bottom. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial, something many people overlook entirely. The coin is made primarily of copper, about 95% copper and 5% zinc. It weighs around 3.11 grams and has a smooth edge. These details may sound simple, but they are essential when identifying authentic coins and spotting unusual variations. Now here's where things get interesting. Even though billions were made, not all 1973 D pennies are equal. The real value comes from condition and errors. Coins that were never circulated, meaning they were never used in everyday transactions, can be worth significantly more than face value. These are known as mint state coins that a 1973 penny, in average circulated condition, might only be worth a few cents. But in high-grade mint condition, especially those graded MS65 or higher, the value can jump to $10, $20, or even more. And if you find one in near-perfect condition, graded MS67 or above, it could sell for hundreds of dollars at auction. But condition is just one piece of the puzzle. Error coins are where collectors really start to pay attention. During the minting process, mistakes sometimes happen. These mistakes can turn an ordinary coin into something truly rare. For the 1973 penny, some collectors search for double die errors. This happens when the design is accidentally stamped more than once in slightly different positions, creating a noticeable doubling effect on letters or numbers. While major double dies are rare for this specific year and mint, minor doubling can still attract interest. Another type of error to look for is off-center strikes. This occurs when the coin blank is not properly aligned during minting, causing part of the design to be missing. The more off-center the coin is, while still showing the date, the more valuable it can be. There are also die cracks, which appear as raised lines on the coin caused by cracks in the minting die. While small cracks are common, larger and more dramatic ones can make a coin more collectible. And then there are the truly unusual cases, coins struck on the wrong planchet. Imagine a 1973 penny accidentally struck on a metal blank meant for a different coin. These are extremely rare, but when they do appear, they can sell for thousands of dollars. Real auction records show that high-grade 1973 pennies have sold for impressive amounts. One example, graded MS67, sold for several $100s, far beyond its 1-cent face value. Error coins, depending on the type and visibility of the mistake, have reached even higher prices. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 1973 penny? Start by checking the mint mark. Look just below the date on the front of the coin. If you see a small D, you know it was minted in Denver. Next, examine the condition. Is the coin shiny with no visible wear? Are the details sharp and clear? Coins that look almost brand new are much more desirable. Then, take a closer look at the lettering and numbers. Do you see any doubling? Are there unusual marks or misalignments? Even small details can make a big difference. Weight is another important factor. A genuine 1973 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it's significantly lighter or heavier, it could be altered or counterfeit. Speaking of counterfeits, while the 1973 penny is not one of the most commonly faked coins, it's still important to be cautious. Some people attempt to alter coins to make them appear more valuable, such as adding fake mint marks or modifying dates. Always compare your coin to verified examples, and when in doubt, consider having it evaluated by a professional grading service. Here's something surprising. Many valuable coins are still out there, hiding in plain sight. They're sitting in old jars, tucked away in drawers, or mixed in with everyday change. Most people never think twice about a penny, which is exactly why some of these hidden treasures go unnoticed for years. Another interesting fact is that the early 1970s were a turning point for U.S. coinage. Just a few years after 1973, the composition of pennies would change dramatically. In 1982, the mint switched from mostly copper to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. That means the 1973 penny is part of the last generation of heavier, copper-rich coins, a detail that collectors appreciate. Collectors also love this coin because it represents a balance between accessibility and challenge. It's easy to find a 1973 penny, but finding one in exceptional condition or with a unique error is much harder. That combination keeps the hunt exciting. There's also a sense of nostalgia attached to Lincoln pennies. For many people, these coins were part of everyday life, used in vending machines, given as change, or saved in piggy banks. Holding a 1973 penny is like holding a small piece of history, a reminder of a different time in America. And let's not forget the psychological appeal. The idea that something so small and common could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars is incredibly compelling. It turns ordinary people into treasure hunters, searching through coins with a sense of curiosity and hope. So the next time you come across a penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the date. Look for that small D mint mark. Examine the details. because hidden within that tiny piece of copper could be a story, a rarity, or even a surprising value you never expected. The 1973 Lincoln penny may not be the rarest coin ever made, but it proves something important. Value is not always obvious. Sometimes, it's hidden in the smallest details, waiting for someone curious enough to notice. And who knows? The next coin you pick up might not just be spare change. It might be the beginning of a discovery. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and realizing that this tiny copper coin could hold a story far deeper than its face value. A coin most people ignore, yet one that has quietly passed through millions of hands since 1978. The real question is, could that ordinary-looking penny be more interesting, or even more valuable, than you ever imagined? Today, we're diving into the 1978 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. At first glance, it seems like just another common coin. You've probably seen dozens of them without giving it a second thought. But behind its modest appearance lies a history tied to American culture, subtle details that collectors look for, and a surprising level of interest in today's coin market. The 1978 Lincoln penny is part of one of the longest-running coin designs in United States history. This design first appeared in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln, making it the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. By 1978, the design had already been in circulation for nearly 70 years, becoming one of the most familiar objects in everyday American life. Now, when we say no mint mark, we're talking about a coin that was struck in Philadelphia. During that time, coins made in Philadelphia typically did not carry a mint mark, unlike those from Denver or San Francisco. So if you look at a 1978 penny and don't see a small letter under the date, that simply means it came from the Philadelphia Mint in 1978. The United States was going through a period of economic adjustment. Inflation was rising, and everyday currency still played a major role in daily transactions. Pennies were used constantly, passed from hand to hand in grocery stores, gas stations, and vending machines. Billions of these coins were produced to meet demand. In fact, over 5 billion pennies were minted in Philadelphia alone that year. That number tells you something important right away. This is not a rare coin in terms of quantity. But here's where things get interesting. Even though millions were made, not all coins are equal. The story of value in coin collecting often comes down to condition, detail, and the occasional unexpected mistake. Let's take a closer look at the coin itself. The 1978 Lincoln penny is made primarily of copper, with a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc. It has that classic reddish-brown color, although over time many of these coins darken or develop a brown tone due to oxidation. On the front, you'll see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, facing to the right. Above his head is the word Liberty, and to the right is the date, 1978. The phrase "In God We Trust" runs along the top edge. It's a simple, clean design that has remained largely unchanged for decades. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959 to mark Lincoln's 150th birthday. If you look closely, you can actually see a tiny representation of Lincoln seated inside the memorial. This level of detail is something many people overlook, but collectors appreciate it deeply. Now, you might be wondering, if so many of these coins exist, why would anyone care about a 1978 penny? The answer lies in quality and rarity within common coins. While billions were made, most of them were heavily used in circulation. They were scratched, worn down, and lost their original shine. Finding one in pristine condition today is much harder than you might think. Collectors use grading systems to determine a coin's condition. A heavily worn coin might only be worth its face value, while a coin in uncirculated condition, meaning it was never used in everyday transactions, can be worth significantly more. For example, a typical circulated 1978 no-mint mark penny is usually worth just 1 cent, maybe a few cents at best. But if you find one in brilliant uncirculated condition, with its original red color fully intact, the value can jump to several dollars. And in the highest grades, especially those certified by professional grading services, some examples have sold for over $100 or more. That's a huge difference for a coin most people ignore. But condition isn't the only factor. Errors can make a big difference as well. Coin errors happen during the minting process, and they often create unique variations that collectors love. With the 1978 penny, some known errors include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned, and double die errors, where parts of the design appear slightly duplicated due to a misalignment during production. These errors are rare compared to the standard coins, and when they are found, they can dramatically increase the value. For instance, a 1978 penny with a strong off-center strike could sell for dozens or even hundreds of dollars depending on how dramatic the error is. A well-defined double die error can also attract serious collector interest. So how can you tell if your 1978 penny? What if a penny you've ignored for decades, quietly sitting in a jar or lost in a drawer, could actually be worth far more than just 1 cent? Not thousands in most cases, but enough to make collectors stop, look twice, and sometimes even compete for it. Today, we're uncovering the story behind the 1987 Lincoln penny, a coin that looks ordinary at first glance, but carries details and hidden potential that many people completely overlook. The 1987 Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced by the United States Mint, specifically at its Denver facility. That small D Mint mark beneath the date tells us it was struck in Denver, not Philadelphia or San Francisco. To most people, it's just another modern penny. But to collectors, every detail matters, and even coins from the late 20th century can hold surprising value depending on condition, errors, and rarity. To understand this coin, we need to go back to the 1980s, a time when the United States was already shifting how its pennies were made. Before 1982, pennies were primarily composed of copper. But rising copper prices forced a major change. By 1987, all Lincoln pennies were made mostly of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This means the 1987 penny is not a solid copper coin, even though it still has that familiar reddish appearance. The design of the coin features one of the most recognized faces in American history, Abraham Lincoln. His portrait appears on the front, a design that has been in use since 1909. It was originally created by Victor David Brenner, and it marked the first time a real person appeared on a circulating U.S. coin. On the reverse side of the 1987 penny, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 until 2008. At first glance, nothing about the 1987 penny screams rarity. In fact, the Denver Mint produced over 4.8 billion of these coins. That's billions with a B. So naturally, most of these pennies are only worth face value. But this is where things start to get interesting, because in coin collecting, rarity is not just about how many were made. It's about how many survive in exceptional condition, and whether any of them were struck with unusual errors. One of the biggest factors that can increase the value of a 1987 penny is its condition. Coins are graded on a scale, and the highest levels, known as mint state grades, are reserved for coins that show little to no wear. A 1987 penny that has been circulating in pockets for years might be worth just 1 cent. But if you find one in near-perfect condition, especially with its original shine intact, it could be worth several dollars, sometimes even more depending on its grade. Now let's talk about something that truly excites collectors: mint errors. These are mistakes that happen during the coin-making process, and they can transform an ordinary penny into a highly collectible item. While the 1987 penny is not widely known for major error varieties, there are still some interesting possibilities. For example, off-center strikes can occur when the coin blank is not properly aligned during minting. This results in a design that is partially missing or shifted to one side. Another error to watch for is a double die, where parts of the design appear slightly duplicated due to a misalignment in the die used to strike the coin. These errors are subtle, but they can significantly increase a coin's value if verified. There are also cases of die cracks or die chips, where small imperfections in the minting tools leave raised marks or unusual shapes on the coin surface. While these might seem like flaws, collectors often view them as unique fingerprints that make a coin stand out from billions of others. When it comes to real-world value, most 1987 pennies sell for modest amounts. A typical circulated coin might not attract much attention. However, uncirculated examples graded by professional services can sell for anywhere from a few dollars to over $10 or $20, depending on quality. Exceptional specimens with high mint state grades, such as MS67 or higher, can sometimes command even stronger prices in the collector market. Error coins, on the other hand, can be far more valuable. Depending on the type and severity of the error, some have sold for significantly higher amounts. While these are not common, they do exist, and they are the reason collectors continue to search through rolls of pennies, hoping to find that one unusual piece. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 1987 D penny? First, check the mint mark. It should be a small D located just below the date. Next, examine the coin's condition. Look for sharp details, clean surfaces, and minimal signs of wear. A magnifying glass can be very helpful here. Then, carefully inspect the coin for any unusual features. Look at the lettering, the date, and Lincoln's profile. Do you notice any doubling? Is the design slightly off-center? Are there any strange bumps or lines that don't seem part of the original design? These could be signs of an error. Another important step is weighing the coin. A standard 1987 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams because of its zinc composition. If your coin weighs significantly more or less, it could indicate something unusual, although such cases are rare and should be verified by experts. It's also worth mentioning that counterfeit pennies are not very common for coins like the 1987 D, mainly because their base value is low. However, altered coins do exist. Some people try to modify mint marks or create fake errors to make a coin appear more valuable. This is why serious collectors rely on professional grading services to authenticate and evaluate coins. Here's something surprising. Even though billions of 1987 D pennies were made, finding one in perfect condition today is actually quite difficult. Most of these coins entered circulation immediately and were used for years. Over time, they picked up scratches, dents, and wear. That's why high-grade examples are much scarcer than the original mintage numbers suggest. Another interesting detail is how the color of the coin affects its value. Collectors often categorize pennies as red, red-brown, or brown, depending on how much of the original copper color remains. A fully red 1987 D penny, with bright, original luster, is typically more desirable than one that has darkened over time. Collectors also enjoy assembling complete sets of Lincoln pennies by year and mint mark. This means the 1987 D penny plays an important role in those collections. Even though it's not the rarest coin, it's still a necessary piece of the puzzle, and high-quality examples are always in demand. There's also a sense of nostalgia tied to coins like this. For many people, the 1987 penny is a reminder of a different era. It might bring back memories of childhood, pocket change, or simpler times. That emotional connection adds another layer of appeal for collectors. And here's a question that keeps the hunt exciting. How many valuable coins are still out there, hidden in plain sight? The truth is, no one really knows. Every year, collectors discover coins that were overlooked for decades. Sometimes they're found in old jars, piggy banks, or inherited collections. And occasionally, they turn out to be far more valuable than anyone expected. The 1987 D Lincoln penny may not be the rarest coin in American history, but it represents something bigger. It shows how even the most common objects can hold hidden stories and unexpected value. It reminds us that history is not just found in museums, but also in the small things we use every day. So the next time you come across a penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the date. Look for that small D mint mark. Examine the details, because sometimes the difference between an ordinary coin and a collectible one is just a matter of attention. And who knows, the next coin you find might not just be spare change. It might be a small piece of history waiting to be discovered. What if the next penny you find in your pocket isn't just spare change, but a hidden piece of American history that collectors quietly search for every day? A coin so common on the surface, yet full of details that most people overlook. Today, we're taking a closer look at the 1994 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, and why this simple coin still captures attention decades later. At first glance, the 1994 Lincoln penny looks like any other 1-cent coin. It carries the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln on the front and a simple memorial design on the back. Millions of people have handled it without ever giving it a second thought. But beneath that ordinary appearance lies a story tied to American history, minting processes, and collector interest that continues even today. The 1994 Lincoln penny belongs to a long-running series that began in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday. For decades, this design became one of the most recognized coins in the United States. By 1994, the coin had already been in circulation for generations, and the Lincoln Memorial Reverse, introduced in 1959, was still being used. This means the 1994 version represents a mature era of the Lincoln Cent series, when production was highly efficient and coins were made in enormous numbers. Now, here's where things start to get interesting. When people hear no mint mark, they often assume something is missing or rare. But in the case of the 1994 penny, a missing mint mark is actually normal for coins produced in Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Mint, for many years, did not include a mint mark on pennies. So, a 1994 penny without a mint mark simply means it was made in Philadelphia. In 1994, the United States Mint produced billions of pennies. Philadelphia alone struck over 6.5 billion of them. That's a massive number, which means the coin itself is not rare in the traditional sense. However, collectors don't just look at mintage numbers. They look at condition, quality, and small details that can turn an ordinary coin into something much more valuable. Let's talk about the physical features of the 1994 penny. The coin is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This composition was introduced in 1982 to reduce production costs. It weighs about 2.5 grams and has a smooth edge. On the front, you see Abraham Lincoln facing right, along with the words, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the year 1994. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, with United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and 1 cent. At this point, everything sounds very standard. But what separates an ordinary 1994 penny from one that collectors actually care about is condition. Coins are graded on a scale, and most pennies you find in circulation are heavily worn. But if you happen to find one that looks almost brand new, with sharp details and original shine, its value can increase significantly. Collectors use terms like mint state to describe coins that have never been circulated. A 1994 no-mint mark penny in average condition is worth exactly 1 cent. But in high-grade condition, especially those graded MS-65 or higher, the value can jump to several dollars. And if you find an exceptionally well-preserved example graded MS-67 or above, the price can climb into the hundreds. There have been auction records where top-quality 1994 pennies without a mint mark sold for over $100. These are not your everyday coins. They are carefully preserved pieces with nearly flawless surfaces, strong luster, and no visible wear. This is where the real excitement begins for collectors. Another factor that can increase value is the presence of errors. Minting errors are small mistakes that happen during production. These can include off-center strikes, double impressions, or unusual surface marks. While most 1994 pennies are perfectly normal, a small number were struck with minor errors that make them more desirable. For example, a double die error occurs when the coin design is stamped more than once in slightly different positions. This can create a subtle doubling effect on the text or design. If such an error is confirmed on a 1994 penny, it can increase its value significantly. Even small imperfections, like die cracks or unusual toning, can attract collector interest. Now, you might be wondering how to tell if you have a valuable 1994 no-mint mark penny. The first step is to look closely at the coin. Check the date and confirm that there is no mint mark below it. That tells you it was made in Philadelphia. Next, examine the overall condition. Does the coin still have its original shine? Are the details sharp and clear, or is it worn and dull? Lighting plays an important role here. Tilt the coin under a light source and observe how it reflects. High-quality coins often have a bright, almost mirror-like surface. Also, check for any unusual features, such as doubling in the letters or numbers. A magnifying glass can help you spot these small details. It's also important to be cautious about fake or altered coins. While the 1994 penny is not commonly counterfeited, there are cases where people attempt to modify coins to make them appear more valuable. For example, someone might try to polish a coin to give it a shiny appearance, but this actually reduces its value in the eyes of collectors. A genuine high-grade coin will have natural luster, not an artificial shine. If you're unsure, professional grading services can evaluate your coin and assign it an official grade. This adds credibility and can help you determine its true market value. Here's a surprising fact. Even though billions of 1994 pennies were produced, only a tiny fraction remain in near-perfect condition today. Most coins entered circulation and were used for everyday transactions. Over time, they became scratched, worn, and damaged. That's why collectors are willing to pay more for coins that somehow avoided all that wear. Another interesting detail is how people often overlook modern coins. Many collectors focus on older pennies from the early 1900s, assuming newer coins have no value. But the reality is, condition matters more than age in many cases. A flawless 1994 penny can be more valuable than a heavily worn coin from the 1920s. Collectors also appreciate the 1994 penny as part of a larger set. Some people try to collect every Lincoln penny from each year and mint. Completing a full set requires finding coins in good condition, which becomes more challenging for certain years. Even common coins like the 1994 no-mint mark penny play an important role in these collections. There's also a nostalgic aspect to this coin. For many Americans, the 1990s feel like a recent memory. Finding a coin from that era can bring back personal memories, making it more meaningful than its face value suggests. Coins are not just currency. They are small pieces of history that pass through countless hands over time. And here's something that might surprise you. Many valuable coins are discovered by accident. People find them in old jars, piggy banks, or inherited collections. They often don't realize what they have until they take a closer look. The same could be true for a 1994 penny sitting quietly in your home right now. So why do collectors still care about a coin like this? Comes down to the thrill of the hunt. Even with a common coin, there's always the possibility of finding a high-grade example or a rare error. That sense of discovery keeps collectors searching through rolls of pennies, hoping to spot something special. In the end, the 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is a perfect example of how something ordinary can become interesting when you look a little closer. It's not about guaranteed riches or rare treasures hidden in every coin. It's about understanding the details, appreciating the history, and recognizing the small differences that make each coin unique. So the next time you come across a penny, don't ignore it. Take a moment to examine it. Look at the date, check for a mint mark, and notice its condition. Because sometimes the most ordinary objects hold stories that are waiting to be discovered. And who knows, the next coin you pick up might not just be a penny. It might be the start of a collection, a connection to history, or a small but fascinating piece of something much bigger. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a simple penny, something you might normally ignore or even throw into a jar. Now imagine that same penny quietly holding a story, a history, and in some cases, a value far greater than 1 cent. Today, we're talking about the 2000 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that looks ordinary, but has sparked curiosity among collectors and everyday people alike. The 2000 no mint mark Lincoln penny is one of those coins that almost everyone in America has seen at some point. It's not ancient, it's not made of silver or gold, and it wasn't created as a special edition. In fact, millions of these coins were produced for everyday use. But like many coins in circulation, its true story lies beneath the surface. Understanding what it is, where it came from, and why some people pay attention to it can completely change how you see that small copper-colored coin. To understand this penny, we need to go back to the year 2000. This was a time when the United States was stepping into a new millennium. There was excitement, uncertainty, and a sense of entering a new era. The U.S. Mint continued its long tradition of producing Lincoln pennies, a design that had been in circulation since 1909. That design, featuring President Abraham Lincoln on the front, had already become one of the most recognizable coin designs in American history. The year 2000 pennies were produced in massive numbers. The United States Mint operated major facilities in Philadelphia and Denver, with San Francisco producing mostly proof coins for collectors. When a coin has no mint mark, it usually means it was minted in Philadelphia. So a 2000 Lincoln penny without a mint mark isn't an error by default. It simply indicates that it came from the Philadelphia Mint, which at the time did not always include a mint mark on pennies. Now let's take a closer look at the coin itself. On the front or obverse, you'll see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. Above Lincoln's head is the word liberty, and to the right is the year 2000. The phrase "In God We Trust" appears along the top edge. It's a simple design, but one that carries deep historical meaning. On the back, or reverse, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was introduced in 1959 to celebrate Lincoln's 150th birthday. If you look closely at the memorial, you can even see a tiny representation of Lincoln's statue inside, making this one of the few U.S. coins to feature the same person on both sides. The coin is made primarily of zinc with a thin copper plating. Since 1982, pennies have been produced this way to reduce costs. This means the coin is lightweight and not made of solid copper like older pennies. However, even with this common composition, variations can still occur during the minting process. And this is where things get interesting. While most 2000 no-mint mark pennies are very common, certain versions of this coin have drawn attention because of errors or unusual characteristics. These errors can happen during the striking process, when the coin is stamped with its design. Some examples include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned, making the coin look partially blank. There are also double die errors, where parts of the design appear slightly duplicated due to a misalignment during the die creation process. Another type is broad strike errors, where the coin spreads out more than normal because it wasn't properly contained during striking. These types of errors are not extremely common, and when they do occur, they can significantly increase the value of what would otherwise be an ordinary penny. For collectors, finding an error coin is like discovering a hidden treasure in everyday change, so why would anyone consider a 2000 no-mint mark penny valuable? The answer depends on condition and uniqueness. Most of these pennies are only worth face value. But coins in exceptional condition, known as uncirculated or mint state, can be worth more. These coins have no visible wear and often have a bright, original shine. In some cases, high-grade examples graded by professional services have sold for noticeable amounts. For instance, a 2000 no-mint mark penny graded at the very top levels, such as MS-67 or higher, has been known to sell for several dollars, sometimes even more depending on demand. While that may not sound like life-changing money, it's still a significant increase over 1 cent now. If the coin also has a clear and desirable error, the value can climb much higher. Certain error pennies from this year have been listed and sold for tens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on the rarity and visibility of the mistake. Collectors are always searching for coins that stand out, and errors provide that uniqueness. But here's the important part. Not every unusual-looking coin is valuable. Sometimes wear, damage, or environmental effects can make a coin look different, but that doesn't mean it's rare. This is why understanding how to identify a genuine collectible coin is so important. To determine if your 2000 no-mint mark penny might be worth more, start by examining its condition. Look for sharp details, especially in Lincoln's hair and the lines of the memorial. Check the surface for scratches, discoloration, or signs of damage. A coin in better condition will always be more appealing to collectors. Next, inspect the coin carefully for errors. Use a magnifying glass if possible. Look for doubling in the letters or numbers, off-center designs, or unusual shapes. Compare your coin to verified examples from trusted sources. If something looks truly different and not just worn out, it might be worth getting it evaluated by a professional grading service. Another key point is authenticity. While counterfeit pennies are not very common for this particular year, altered coins do exist. Some people try to modify coins to make them appear rare. For example, they might remove a mint mark or create artificial doubling. That's why it's important to rely on trusted experts when you believe you have something special. Now here's something surprising. Even though billions of pennies were produced in the year 2000, only a tiny fraction are kept in near-perfect condition. Most coins enter circulation and quickly show signs of wear. This means that high-grade examples become harder to find over time, slowly increasing their appeal among collectors. There's also a psychological factor. The year 2000 represents a major milestone. Coins from this year are often kept as keepsakes because they mark the beginning of a new millennium. This emotional connection can add to their desirability, even if the coin itself is not extremely rare. Collectors also enjoy the hunt. Searching through rolls of pennies or jars of loose change becomes an adventure. The idea that a valuable coin could be hiding in plain sight is what keeps people looking. And the 2000 no-mint mark penny is a perfect example of that possibility. Another interesting detail is that some collectors focus on building complete sets of Lincoln pennies by year and mint mark. For them, Even a common coin like the 2000 Philadelphia penny is an essential piece of the puzzle. The satisfaction of completing a collection is often more important than the individual value of each coin. Over time, coins like this also become historical markers. They reflect the technology, economy, and design standards of their era. When you hold a 2000 penny, you're holding a small piece of history from a time when the world was transitioning into a new century. So what should you do if you come across one of these pennies? The first step is simple. Don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the condition, look for errors, and compare it with known examples. Even if it turns out to be common, you've gained knowledge and awareness. If you believe your coin might be special, consider having it professionally graded. This not only confirms its authenticity but also gives it a standardized condition rating, which can increase its market value and trust among buyers. In the end, the 2000 No Mint Mark Lincoln penny is a reminder that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes it hides in the most ordinary places. A coin that most people overlook can still carry meaning, history, and in some cases, surprising worth. And the next time you hear the clink of coins in your pocket, you might just pause for a moment. Because among those everyday pennies, there could be a story waiting to be discovered. And maybe, just maybe, a hidden piece of value that others have missed. What if the next penny you find in your pocket isn't just spare change, but a small piece of American history that could be worth far more than 1 cent? Today, we're looking at the 2001 No Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that millions of people have seen, touched, and spent without ever realizing its deeper story. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. But once you understand where it came from, how it was made, and what collectors look for, this simple coin becomes much more interesting than you might expect. The 2001 Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln. By 2001, this design had already been in circulation for over 90 years, making it one of the most recognized coins in American history. The obverse, or front, still features Lincoln's profile, a design created by Victor David Brenner. On the reverse, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had been used since 1959. Now, here's where things start to get interesting. When we say no mint mark, it doesn't mean the coin is missing something by accident. It actually tells you where the coin was made. In 2001, pennies were struck at multiple U.S. mint facilities, including United States mint locations in Philadelphia and Denver. Coins made in Denver carry a small D mint mark, but coins made in Philadelphia traditionally have no mint mark at all. So a 2001 penny with no mint mark simply means it was produced in Philadelphia. And that might sound common because it is. The Philadelphia Mint struck billions of pennies that year. But here's the key point. While most are only worth 1 cent, certain versions of this coin can be worth much more depending on their condition and unique characteristics. Let's talk about what makes this coin special. The 2001 Lincoln penny is made mostly of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This composition has been used since 1982, replacing the older, heavier copper pennies. The coin weighs about 2.5 grams and has a smooth edge on the front. You'll see Lincoln facing right, along with the words "In God We Trust" above, Liberty to the left, and the year 2001 to the right. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial appears in the center with United States of America above and 1 cent below. But collectors don't just look at the basic design. They look closely at condition and errors. And this is where the 2001 No Mint Mark penny can become valuable. Condition plays a huge role. Most pennies from 2001 have been heavily circulated. They've been used in transactions, dropped, scratched, and worn down over time. But if you happen to find one in uncirculated condition, meaning it looks almost exactly as it did when it left the mint, its value can increase significantly. Coins graded as mint state, especially those with strong luster and no visible damage, can sell for several dollars, sometimes even more depending on the grade. For example, a high-grade 2001 No Mint Mark penny graded MS 65 or higher can sell for anywhere between $5 to $20. In even better condition, such as MS 67, prices can climb into the hundreds. And then there are error coins. These are coins that were struck incorrectly during the minting process. While not extremely common, they do exist, and they are highly sought after by collectors. Some known errors for 2001 pennies include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned, and double die errors, where parts of the design appear doubled due to a misalignment in the die. There are also cases of broad strikes, where the coin appears slightly stretched because it was struck without the proper colored. A 2001 no-mint mark penny with a clear and noticeable error can sell for much higher prices. Some error coins have been listed and sold for $50, $100, or even more depending on the uniqueness and visibility of the error. Now, let's talk about real-world value examples. While most 2001 pennies are still only worth 1 cent, collectors have paid meaningful amounts for exceptional pieces. Online marketplaces and auction sites regularly show listings where high-grade coins sell for $10, $20, or even over $100. Rare error coins can exceed that, especially if they are certified by professional grading services. But before you get too excited, it's important to understand how to identify a valuable coin. Not every shiny penny is rare, and not every old coin is worth money. Start by checking the mint mark. For this coin, you're specifically looking for no mint mark under the year, which confirms it was made in Philadelphia. Next, examine the condition. Look for strong detail in Lincoln's hair and the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. The fewer scratches, stains, or signs of wear, the better. If you suspect an error, look closely at the lettering and numbers. Are they doubled? Is the design off-center? Does the coin look unusual compared to a normal penny? These small differences can make a big impact on value. To confirm authenticity and condition, many collectors turn to professional grading services like Professional Coin Grading Service and Numismatic Guarantee Company. These organizations evaluate coins and assign them a grade, which helps establish their market value. Now here's something surprising. Even though billions of 2001 pennies were made, finding one in perfect condition today is actually quite difficult. Most were immediately released into circulation, and over time they've been worn down or lost. That means truly pristine examples are much rarer than you might think. Another interesting detail is that the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse actually includes a tiny image of Lincoln's statue inside the building. If you look closely, you can see it. This level of detail is part of what makes the Lincoln cent so iconic. Collectors also appreciate this coin because it represents the final years of the Lincoln Memorial design. Just a few years later, in 2009, the reverse design changed to celebrate Lincoln's bicentennial. That makes earlier designs, including the 2001 penny, part of a completed chapter in U.S. coin history. And let's not forget the emotional side of collecting. For many people, coins like the 2001 penny are more than just metal. They're memories. They remind people of childhood, of saving coins in jars, or of searching through pocket change with the hope of finding something valuable. That feeling of discovery is what keeps collectors coming back. The idea that something so small and ordinary could hold hidden value is incredibly powerful. So why do collectors still care about a coin like the 2001 no-mint mark Lincoln penny today? It comes down to a mix of history, condition, and possibility. It may not be rare in the traditional sense, but the chance of finding a high-grade or error version keeps it exciting. Every penny has a story, and sometimes the most common coins are the ones that surprise you the most. So the next time you receive change, take a closer look. That 2001 penny you almost ignored might not just be worth 1 cent. It could be a small but meaningful piece of American history, or even the start of a collection that leads you down a fascinating path. And who knows, the next rare find might already be sitting in your pocket, just waiting to be discovered. Imagine finding a simple penny in your pocket, the kind you almost ignore, and then discovering it might be worth far more than 1 cent. Not because it looks special at first glance, but because of a small detail most people never even think to check. Today, we're talking about the 2005 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that millions of people have handled, but very few truly understand. At first, this coin doesn't seem rare at all. It's a modern penny, minted in 2005, part of the long-running Lincoln cent series that has been in circulation since 1909. By 2005, these coins were everywhere, used in everyday transactions, dropped into jars, and forgotten in drawers. But hidden within this ordinary appearance is a detail that often raises questions, confusion, and sometimes even excitement among collectors. So what exactly is a 2005 no-mint mark Lincoln penny? to understand that we need to take a quick step back. In the United States, coins are produced at different mint facilities. The most common ones are Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each mint usually places a small letter, known as a mint mark, on the coin to show where it was made. For example, a D stands for Denver, and an S stands for San Francisco. But here's where things get interesting. Not all coins have a mint mark. For many years, coins produced in Philadelphia did not include any mint mark at all. That means if you're holding a 2005 penny with no letter under the date, it was most likely minted in Philadelphia. Now you might be thinking, if millions of these were made, how could it be valuable? That's a fair question, and the answer lies in the details. The year 2005 is part of a special period in the Lincoln Penny series. In 2004 and 2005, the U.S. Mint released redesigned reverse images to honor the bicentennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth and the 200th anniversary of the Lewis and Clark expedition. In 2005 specifically, there were two different reverse designs used. The first design shows a bison, also known as the American buffalo. It represents the wildlife encountered during the westward journey. The second design features an ocean view with the words, "Ocean in view." Oh, the joy! Inspired by the explorers finally reaching the Pacific Ocean. Both of these designs can be found on 2005 pennies, including those with no mint marked on the front or obverse. The coin still features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. His image has remained largely unchanged for decades, making it one of the most recognizable coin designs in American history. In terms of composition, the 2005 penny is made mostly of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This has been the standard since 1982, when the rising cost of copper forced the mint to change the metal content. So despite its copper appearance, the coin is actually much lighter than older pennies made before 1982. So far, nothing seems particularly rare, right? Here's where collectors start paying attention. While the standard 2005 no mint mark penny is extremely common and usually worth just 1 cent, certain versions of this coin can be worth much more due to condition and errors. Condition is one of the biggest factors. Most pennies are heavily used, scratched, and worn down over time. But if you happen to find a 2005 penny in uncirculated condition, meaning it looks almost brand new, its value can increase significantly. Coins graded at the highest levels, such as MS67 or higher, are very rare because it's difficult for coins to survive in perfect condition after being released into circulation. In some cases, collectors have paid tens or even hundreds of dollars for high-grade examples of the 2005 no mint mark penny. Not because the coin itself is rare, but because finding one in near-perfect condition is extremely difficult. Then there are errors. Coin errors are where things get truly exciting. These are mistakes that happen during the minting process, and they can turn an ordinary coin into something highly collectible. For the 2005 penny, some of the most talked about errors include double die errors, off-center strikes, and die cracks. A double die error happens when the coin's design is accidentally stamped more than once in slightly different positions. This can create a noticeable doubling effect, especially in the lettering or numbers. If you look closely at the date or the word Liberty, you might see this doubling. Off-center strikes occur when the coin is not properly aligned during the minting process, resulting in part of the design being cut off. The more dramatic the misalignment, the more valuable the coin can be. Die cracks are another interesting feature. These appear as raised lines on the surface of the coin and are caused by small fractures in the minting dies. While some collectors see them as flaws, others find them fascinating and collectible. There have been cases where error versions of the 2005 no mint mark penny have sold for hundreds of dollars, depending on the type and severity of the error. But let's talk about real-world value. Most 2005 no mint mark pennies in average circulated condition are still worth exactly 1 cent. That's the reality. However, uncirculated examples can range from a few dollars to over $20. Depending on their quality, high-grade coins that have been professionally graded and certified can reach even higher prices. In rare cases, exceptional examples have sold for over $100 at auction. Error coins can go even further. A well-defined double die or a dramatic off-center strike could potentially sell for several $100s, especially if it's in good condition. So how do you know if the coin you have is special? First, check for the mint mark. Look directly under the date on the front of the coin. If there is no letter, it was minted in Philadelphia. Next, examine the condition. Does the coin look shiny and new, or is it worn and scratched? The better the condition, the higher the potential value. Then, look closely for errors. Use a magnifying glass if possible. Check the letters, numbers, and overall design for anything unusual. Doubling, misalignment, or strange lines could indicate an error. Also, be cautious of fakes or misleading claims. Some people may try to sell ordinary pennies at inflated prices by calling them rare or valuable without any real reason. Always compare your coin to verified examples and, if needed, consult a professional coin grading service. Here's a surprising fact. Many valuable coins are discovered by accident. People find them in old jars, inherited collections, or even in everyday change. That means the next time you receive a penny, it might be worth taking a second look. Another interesting detail is that pennies like the 2005 Lincoln cent are slowly disappearing from circulation. As people move toward digital payments and cash becomes less common, fewer coins are actively used. Over time, this can increase interest among collectors, especially for coins in excellent condition. Collectors love coins like the 2005 no-mint mark penny not because it's rare in the traditional sense, but because it represents a moment in history. It connects to the story of Abraham Lincoln, the evolution of American currency, and even the changes in how money is used in modern society. There's also a thrill in the hunt. The idea that something valuable could be hiding in plain sight keeps collectors searching, checking, and learning. Even a common coin can become exciting when you understand what to look for. And that's really what makes this coin special. It's not just about the value. It's about awareness, about noticing the details that others overlook, about turning something ordinary into something meaningful. So the next time you see a 2005 penny with no mint mark, don't just toss it aside. Take a closer look. Check the condition. Look for errors. Because while most of them are worth only a cent, a few could tell a much more interesting story. And who knows, the next one you find might be more valuable than you ever expected. What if the next penny you find in your pocket isn't just spare change, but a hidden opportunity worth far more than 1 cent? Most people overlook it every single day. But today, we're taking a closer look at a coin that might already be sitting quietly in your collection. The 2006 D Mint Mark Lincoln Penny. At first glance, the 2006 D Lincoln Penny looks completely ordinary. It's small, copper-colored, and easy to ignore. But behind its simple appearance is a story tied to American history, modern minting technology, and a world of collectors who search carefully for subtle details that can turn a common coin into something surprisingly valuable. This coin was minted in 2006 at the Denver Mint, which is why it carries the small D Mint mark on the front. Like billions of other pennies, it features the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, a design that has been part of American coinage since 1909. By 2006, this design had already been in circulation for nearly a century, making it one of the longest-running designs in U.S. history. The year 2006 itself wasn't tied to a major redesign or special commemorative release, which is exactly why many people assume these pennies have no special value. But in the world of coin collecting, value isn't always about obvious changes. Sometimes it's about the small differences, the tiny imperfections or rare conditions that most people never notice. The 2006 D penny was produced during a time when the U.S. Mint had already switched to a modern metal composition. Unlike older pennies made mostly of copper, this coin is made of a zinc core with a thin copper plating. This change was introduced in 1982 to reduce production costs, and by 2006 it had become standard. Even though this composition is common, it actually plays an important role in determining value. Because the coin is mostly zinc, it is more vulnerable to damage, corrosion, and wear. That means finding a 2006 D penny in near-perfect condition is much harder than you might expect. And in coin collecting, condition is everything. Take a closer look at the design. On the front, you'll see Abraham Lincoln facing right, along with the inscriptions "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the year 2006. Just below the date is the small D mint mark, indicating it was struck in Denver. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 until 2008. If you look carefully, you can even see a tiny representation of Lincoln's statue inside the memorial, a detail that many people miss. Now here's where things get interesting. While most 2006 D pennies are only worth their face value, certain versions of this coin have caught the attention of collectors. These are usually coins with errors, unusual features, or exceptionally high grades. Mint errors are one of the most exciting aspects of modern coin collecting. These are mistakes that happen during the production process, and they can make a coin much more valuable. With the 2006 D penny, collectors have reported several types of errors, including off-center strikes, die cracks, and doubling in the lettering. A double die error, for example, happens when the design is stamped more than once in slightly different positions. This creates a visible shadow effect on the letters or numbers. While not extremely common, these errors can increase the value of a coin significantly, especially if they are clear and easy to see. Another type of error is a die crack, which appears as a raised line on the surface of the coin. This happens when the die used to strike the coin develops a crack over time. While some die cracks are minor, others can be dramatic and highly collectible. But errors aren't the only way a 2006 D penny can become valuable. Condition plays a huge role as well. Coins are graded on a scale from poor to mint state, with mint state coins showing no signs of wear. A 2006 D penny that has never been circulated and still retains its original shine can be worth far more than one that has been used for years. In fact, some high-grade examples of the 2006 D penny have sold for impressive prices. While most circulated coins are worth just 1 cent, uncirculated coins graded at the highest levels by professional grading services have been known to sell for several dollars, and in rare cases even higher. Coins with exceptional luster, sharp details, and no visible marks are the ones that collectors are willing to pay for. There have also been auction listings where error coins from this year have reached even more surprising values. A well-defined double die or a dramatic off-center strike can sometimes sell for tens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on the severity of the error and the overall condition of the coin. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 2006 D penny? Start by checking the mint mark. Look just below the date on the front of the coin. If you see a small D, you know it was minted in Denver. Next, examine the coin closely under good lighting. Look for anything unusual, extra thickness in the letters, doubling, cracks, or parts of the design that seem misaligned. Pay attention to the condition as well. Does the coin still have its original shine? Are the details sharp and clear? Or does it show signs of wear, scratches, or discoloration? Even small differences in condition can have a big impact on value. If you believe you've found something special, it may be worth having the coin evaluated by a professional grading service. These experts can confirm whether your coin has an error or qualifies for a high grade, which can significantly increase its market value. It's also important to be aware of fakes or altered coins. While the 2006 D penny isn't one of the most commonly counterfeited coins, there are cases where people try to modify coins to make them appear more valuable. For example, someone might attempt to create a fake error by altering the surface of the coin. Genuine mint errors, however, have a natural and consistent appearance that is difficult to replicate. One way to protect yourself is to compare your coin with verified examples from reputable sources. Look at images of known error coins and study the details carefully. If something doesn't look quite right, it's better to be cautious. Now let's talk about something that surprises many people. Even though billions of pennies were minted in 2006, only a tiny fraction of them remain in pristine condition today. Most have been used in everyday transactions, exposed to the elements, and gradually worn down over time. That means truly high-quality examples are much rarer than the original mintage numbers might suggest. Another interesting fact is that the Lincoln Memorial design used on this coin was nearing the end of its run. Just 2 years later, in 2008, the U.S. Mint would retire this reverse design and replace it with new designs to celebrate the bicentennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. That makes the 2006 D penny part of the final chapter of a design that had been used for nearly 50 years. Collectors often find this period especially interesting because it represents a transition point in U.S. coinage. Coins from these final years can carry a sense of history that goes beyond their face value. So why do collectors still care about a coin like the 2006 D penny? The answer lies in the thrill of discovery. Coin collecting isn't just about owning rare items. It's about the hunt. It's about looking at something ordinary and asking, could this be something more? For many collectors, the idea that a valuable coin could be hiding in everyday change is what makes the hobby so exciting. It turns a simple object into a potential treasure, and every coin becomes a small mystery waiting to be solved. The 2006 D penny represents that idea perfectly. It's common enough to be found almost anywhere, yet it still holds the possibility of something rare and valuable. Whether it's a hidden error, an exceptional grade, or simply a well-preserved example, this coin reminds us that value isn't always obvious. And that brings us back to where we started. That penny in your pocket, the one you almost ignored, could be more than just a cent. It could be a piece of history, a collector's item, or even the beginning of a new hobby. So the next time you come across a 2006 D Lincoln penny, don't rush past it. Take a closer look. Examine the details, because sometimes the smallest coins carry the biggest surprises, and you never know what you might find until you look closely.